Okay, Ez, let's move on over to our Maester study today. We have kind of a big one here.
Yeah, this is pretty fun. This is one of our loyal bannermen, Sir Matthew Perry, Lord of Sunfire. Um, sent this in, and it's just very well done. And it's kind of an overview of the Dance of Dragons. So we talked about going in chronological order. We started back with just kind of talking about the Old King and talking about, maybe the Council of 101 AC, its significance to the House of the Dragon. And from there, we're going to kind of take each of our royals, just kind of march through the sequence of events in the royal family and talk about what's happening. So with that, Sir Matthew kind of sent us in this raven that goes over it. So I've divided it up. So Matt and I are going to kind of read some of it, but I thought this would be a good way to get us started. It does kind of take us through some pretty cool talking points in what is probably going to be House of the Dragon, a multi, seasonal thing, right? So it's series, and there's tons of content. There's tons of areas where we can kind of expand on what is in Fire and Blood. So yeah, this is really exciting. So let's just dive into it here. Greetings, sirs, your fellow Westerosi here, Sir Matthew Perry, Lord of Sunfire. I am writing this raven to you now because after listening to last week's episode and hearing that you guys are going to be discussing House of the Dragon more every Maester study, I thought I would share some of my ideas of where the show could go and what awesome storylines they could explore. And yeah, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be making some more YouTube content and kind of going through, various aspects. And I hope people will send in more ravens. And if there's a particular character or a thought or a theory that you want to extend, I hope people will send those in to us. So I'm excited that HBO decided to do a show about the Dance of Dragons. Ever since I read Fire and Blood, when it first came out, I've been obsessed with the major conflict in the A Song of Ice and Fire histories. There's an incredible amount of deception, betrayal, plotting, and murder throughout the entirety of the Dance of Dragons. This totally makes for an amazing political battle between the great houses of Westeros. I'm going to try and narrow down a handful of plot points / directions that we could see during the show. These aren't really my predictions about what's going to actually happen, considering many of us know the outcome, but more of my wishes and wants as well as what I think could be the most interesting. Hopefully some of these talking points aren't incredibly obvious, and I don't get too long-winded here. Well, it's 4 pages, Sir Matthew.
Yeah.
So this is great. I just believe we should start analyzing and discussing every part of the dance sooner rather than later, and I totally agree. This is, to get ready for the show. So I'm going to bounce around the entire conflict, so this won't be in any chronological order, and that's fine. That's what we kind of plan on doing, is marching through it in order. I'm not sure if any of this will be spoilers to other listeners, and we're kind of, what was this? Was it 2 years ago, Sir Matt, or a couple years back when Fire and Blood came out?
I think it came out.
It's been a decent
Fire
amount
and
of
Blood came out like about a couple of months before season 8.
Before season 8, yeah. So people, have had time, I think, to consume it. So yeah, we're definitely gonna. And if you haven't, and you want to kind of click off, we're definitely gonna be, reading through some of the major events. So, all right, yeah, it's been out for quite some time now, but I figured I would still put the warning out there for those who want to see it all unfold on the TV show. It's honestly a little overwhelming to think about every little thing that occurs in the dance. There are so many events, murders, deaths, grudges that happen from 101 AC leading all the way up to 130 AC when the dance has fully taken the realm by storm. It's hard to include everything that I'd want to see in the show, considering it spans a considerable amount of time. I'm also going to be taking a little from Mushroom's perspective, as well as a little from Sept and Eustace perspective. We have those two back and forths in Fire and Blood. Yeah. This show has an extremely large budget, and HBO will do whatever they can to get multiple seasons out of this. So I think we will see a gigantic exploration of the Targaryen Civil War. So with that, I'm sitting here with my copy of Fire and Blood next to me, and I'm ready to dive in.
Yeah, let's go. Here we go. Point number one. The relationship between King Viserys and his infamous brother Daemon Targaryen. I think Daemon is going to be such a badass and a boss in the show, and his ambitions and desire for the Iron Throne truly influence so many of his actions. I really hope that the actor from Vikings, Travis Fimmel, who played Ragnar, does actually play this important character in the story. I believe he would be such an amazing and convincing job. I believe he would do such an amazing and convincing job. Daemon is a complicated, hot tempered guy, but he's also smart and cunning. He believed he was next in line for the Iron Throne, considering King Viserys had no male heirs at the time from his first wife. He became the commander of the City Watch, and never were the Gold Cloaks more feared and respected in King's Landing. They weren't even called Gold Cloaks until he took over. He wanted them to wear their cloaks with pride instead of being ill armed and unthreatening. While his king brother had grown soft and plump over the years, Daemon was a hard and lean warrior, ruthless and well respected by the high and lowborn. A boss, you could say. I could see him becoming my next favorite character in A Song of Ice and Fire. Daemon was also given the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister by old King Jaehaerys, and he also rode the fearsome dragon Caraxes, nicknamed the Bloodworm. But Daemon was also disliked by other higher authorities of the realm, Sir Otto Hightower, a very important player in the dance, and the king's hand at the time. He was intent on never letting Daemon rise to the Iron Throne, as he believed he would become Maegor the Cruel again. Hightower wished at the time that Princess Rhaenyra should be next in line. Of course, you could, as you guys know, the whole reason we have the dance is because of the succession and the Great Council of 101. The next claimant to the Iron Throne had to be a male over a female, but King Viserys had other ideas. He had been grooming his only daughter for years, and his brother Daemon became absolutely furious when the king declared Rhaenyra his heir apparent. Needless to say, the decline of Daemon and Viserys' relationship greatly affected the realm, and the conflict between them would spread throughout his family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, as I mean, it is. Daemon and Viserys are gonna be. Daemon is going to be, I think, the key figure
Right.
of the show, and I feel like that's who it has to be. Now, spoilers. I mean, this is total spoiler territory for anybody who hasn't read the histories. Um, it's gonna be you think about Daemon, and the first thing I think about really is it's going to be it's such an important thing for him, right? It's this constant war that he's going to be fighting basically, and all these political maneuvers to try and get on the throne, and then ultimately it doesn't work for him.
Mm-hmm.
But poetically it is his son that ultimately ends up that does end up taking the throne. So I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think it's going to be really I think it's gonna be really it'll feel like Game of Thrones, but it won't be like Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones ended up being more about you have the Night King and then the stuff with Cersei, and then we can talk about season 8 forever.
Yeah.
But here we actually know, we have an outline, and we know how this is gonna end. And it's just gonna be brutal. And I think oddly enough, a figure of the show is going to be the Iron Throne, and everyone's lust for it, and we see that in the main series. But there's like more stuff even going on, because there's so much more magic and stuff like that. And actually, even though this show's going to have dragons, I think there'll be way less magic, as odd as that seems. So it is going to be more political. There'll just be dragons.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I also think, I mean, so Daemon, yeah, being the star of the show, and being someone who, and Rhaenyra, right, and getting behind those two characters, but really Daemon, there's a lot of room to kind of explore his character and his thoughts and what he was thinking and what he was up to and plotting and scheming, which is really cool. And I also think the mysteries, or the gray areas, or whatever you want to call them, those white areas where they're unexplored, are going to be areas that we who have read the outline and we kind of know where this is going to go are going to love. We're going to fall in love with that and really just eat it up and go crazy, because it's Yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, Daemon Targaryen's where it's at, man. That's gonna be awesome. So, oh, all right. Into point number 2 here. So greens and blacks and oh, so much hate. So next, it will be a fantastic to see the struggle and the hatred on screen of Queen Rhaenyra and Queen Alicent Hightower. The two characters hate each other any more than these two highborn ladies of the court. From their ambitions towards power and control of the realm to battles that ensue because their children and the dragons they ride, these women are definitely the main catalyst for the Dance of Dragons. Very true. The power struggle between these two women will consume them and will also leave a lasting mark upon their children. Queen Alicent had 4 children by King Viserys: Aegon, Helena, Aemon, and Daeron. Rhaenyra had 3 children by Laenor Velaryon. Maybe, right? Maybe she had them by that guy. Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey. The bad blood between their mothers would work its way into their minds, and they would never have love for each other. Even when they were children, right? During a small fight between the boys, young Lucerys picked up a knife and slashed Aemon across the eye, and forever he was known as Aemon One Eye, which is nuts, right? He's this little kid, right? They're getting in fights with knives, and somebody loses an actual eye. That incident did nothing to quell the animosity growing within the Targaryens. Aemon would never forget what Lucerys did, and it would fatally bring those two together to clash again. Queen Alicent was clever and beautiful, and she climbed her way to the top of the monarchy food chain by having an incredibly powerful family name and her father, Otto Hightower, playing the Game of Thrones. Princess Rhaenyra was incredibly favored by her father, and even after Alicent bore King Viserys 2 sons, that did nothing to change his mind of Rhaenyra claiming the throne. Her father married her to Laenor Velaryon to strengthen the relationship between the two great houses, who can trace their heritage back to Valyria. Rhaenyra gave birth to 3 sons, although rumors were spread that many did not believe these sons were fathered by a Velaryon, right? But by Harwin Strong. This rumor will continue to spread. The young princess was also obsessed with her uncle Daemon and spent a large amount of time with her famed uncle. Because of this affair, and most likely his own personal gain, Daemon demanded that his brother give Rhaenyra to him as a bride. Viserys was furious and banished Daemon to exile. During this time, the infamous Sir Criston Cole, there is so much more on him, of course, and there truly is, was believed to have confessed his love for Princess Rhaenyra, and she spurned the young knight of the Kingsguard, to which he harbored serious loathing and disdain for her later on. This, of course, caused him to switch to Queen Alicent's side, and he became one of the princess's biggest threats to her reign. Here we start to see the seeds of loathing and jealousy that will continue to grow between Alicent and Rhaenyra, that will fuel the fires within the Targaryen family and split the realm in 2. There are other houses that play huge roles in these events, such as the Strongs and the Velaryons, that I would love to dive into right now, but I'd like to leave those details up to you guys for discussion and further analysis. It's a lot to unpack, needless to say. Game of Thrones fans and people who are new to this part of the world/history are about to become a hell of a lot more familiar with them in terms of greens and blacks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It is a Targaryen civil war. And that, I think, again, we've talked before about how they had it was between this and possibly the Long Night. And I think this is the better of the two, just for the first successor to Game of Thrones. Because the Long Night would feel a lot less like Game of Thrones, and this will feel more like Game of Thrones, but there will be more dragons, and so it's a good place to go. And so much of that just comes from the fact that it's family versus family. It's not like in a Game of Thrones where you have the War of 5 Kings, right? And everybody's playing. You don't know who's gonna win. Here it's the Targaryens versus Targaryens, and it is brutal. It is brutal. There's a lot of chess pieces. moving around, and Rhaenyra is one of them. I mean,
Yeah.
she is like the ultimate chess piece in this whole thing.
Right.
I mean, because Viserys has plans for her, Daemon has other plans for her, so and
Yeah.
you go from there.
Yeah, I really think, I mean, something that was mentioned in point number one is the power of House Hightower and Otto Hightower even pushing for and being okay with Queen Rhaenyra. And like, okay, that I'm fine with that. The irony is that King Viserys was actually, the reason he's chosen is because of the decision in the 101 Great Council. And then he chooses his daughter. It's kind of ironic. Otto Hightower pushes for that. Well, until he has a grandson who could also make a claim. So it's going to be a lot of political kind of maneuvering and things. It'll be interesting to kind of see how they use their, an individual's words against them, something that they said in the past, and bring it up again later as they're trying to make claims to the throne. It's going to be, interesting to watch that. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. On to point number 3 here. Dragons. I think it's dragons.
Oh, my bad. Am I supposed to, that's mine.
It's in red.
Sorry, it's in red. Yeah, you're right. Dragons, and more dragons. As I said before, the budget is going to be so massive for the upcoming prequel spinoff, the most critically acclaimed show in television history. They are going to need all the money and CGI they can get. The amount of dragons that are around during this time period in Westeros is unraveled by any other time and is the height of their population. From massive dragons like Vhagar to Craxus to Sunfire, Varimax, Dreamfire, Syrax, and countless others, HBO will have their hands full, giving us the ultimate Targaryen dragon showdown. I just hope they do us justice, and we are given insanely amazing battle scenes like we've seen before in Game of Thrones. I have confidence in this since Miguel Sapochnik. Sapochnik, yeah. He's who directed Battle of the Bastards, Long Night, basically the big mega battle episodes in the series. And he's going to be one of the main showrunners and producers. So imagine the scale of battles that we're going to see.
Right.
With pretty much every Targaryen we see during the dance, you also get a dragon. Their eggs were placed in every cradle of a new Targaryen child. More and more dragons are born during this time, and they will be involved in every battle that happens in the Seven Kingdoms. Multiple battles of this war are fought in the air and on the sea, and this could prove quite a challenge for the show. Of course, during the early seasons of the show, I do not think we will see these big battles. The beginning will be setting up all of the chess pieces and seeing the development of character struggles and conflicts with others. We are getting an entire show about deceit, betrayal, and dragons within the A Song of Ice and Fire world. What more could you ask for? Yeah, the battles are going to be huge. I mean, that's why I think it was very wise that they chose Miguel as their showrunner, because he did those. I mean, he directed and you go look at season 8 and you look at The Long Night. I mean, it took them like 50 nights to film that, right? I mean, it is. I mean, regardless of, well, it's too dark and all this other stuff. I mean, that's not necessarily. I don't know if that's necessarily his decision, but I mean, just the scale of that battle is insane. Right. I mean, it's an hour long battle. And some of the episodes did that. I don't know if he did the episode at the Battle of Castle Black, but that was the first episode we saw where the entire episode was one battle. The Battle of the Blackwater was an entire episode, and it's this one battle, and it's going on all these different fronts, and you're seeing it. Then you get to the Battle of the Bastards and everything, and they're just shot so beautifully. I mean, they're done so well, and trying to film that must have been insane, right? I mean, that's quite a challenge. And so if we're gonna get anything close to that, but now you're gonna add in dragons on dragons, it's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the other thing is we're used to Dany having 3, and that's just a trump card, right? She could just go in there and boom, she's got her dragon. She's going to take over. No big deal. Well, what's interesting is, greens and blacks both have dragons. And there's dragon seeds. There's dragon riders. They're working on, there are eggs out there. People are trying to possess those. So, yeah, it's also, I mean, I guess so now it does come down to maneuvering, and then how do you actually use your dragon? How are you going to fight dragons, dragon on dragon combat. What is that? What is that like? And is there something that is that where Daemon's going to step up? Is he going to train some people? I mean, we learn more about dragon riders. I just think it's going to be, that aspect of it's going to be sick. Dragons, and many more dragons. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Point number 4. So small incidents or characters that we should want to see, and this is interesting. So we got a couple, different small points here, but the Cargyll twins, twin brothers of the Kingsguard, Eric Cargyll and Eric. So Eric and then Eric.
Yeah,
Cargyll. Were two badasses that chose opposing sides of the dance. So think about that. They're two twins, right? One's on one side, one's a green, one's a black. Sir Eric choosing King Aegon II in the greens, and Sir Eric aligning with Rhaenyra in the blacks. According to Fire and Blood, these two legendary knights were so loyal to each of their own sides that when the time came, they were forced to fight each other to the death. It's just one of those smaller conflicts that happened within the dance that truly shows how much it affected everything and everyone. If you haven't read Fire and Blood, then I don't want to spoil what happens to them. I'll leave that up to you to read yourself or to see when the show comes out. But man, it is heartbreaking. So yeah, that's a really I remember reading that and going, wow, that was interesting. So let's see. We also have the dance above Storm's End. So early in the dance, we get one of the first dragon and dragon rider duels. I'm sure we'll see this important fight in the show. However, it's most likely it won't be until the later seasons. Prince Aemon One-Eye had flown to Storm's End on the monstrous Vhagar to secure a marriage alliance with House Baratheon. Rhaenyra's second oldest son, Lucerys or Luke, was also sent on his own dragon, Arax, by his mother to do the same thing. So they're both going to try to secure this marriage alliance. What ensued was arguments and taunting as Aemon tried to goad Luke into fighting him. Prince Luke continually refused, claiming he was only sent there as an envoy not to do battle, right? Lord Boris Baratheon would have no quarrels beneath his roof. Luke went on to leave his dragon, and Aemon pursued. Or he left on his dragon, and Aemon pursued him. The battle did not last long, considering the size and the bloodthirstiness of Vhagar. Arax fell broken, and his head and neck washed up on the shore of Storm's End, and the body of Luke Valerion was never found. Right? This would be a huge blow to Rhaenyra, and her uncle husband Daemon Targaryen would declare ultimate vengeance. An eye for an eye, a son for a son. Luke shall be avenged. So that was one of the early on kind of battles that was really detrimental, I think, and really blood's drawn at that point, and so that really moved us into a greater conflict. The dance over Harrenhal and the God's Eye. Lastly, I want to jump to the end days of the dance. Badass Prince Daemon had flown to Harrenhal and had spread the word of his arrival so that Aemon One-Eye would come and face him alone. He waited there for 13 days, and on the 14th, Aemon came flying in over Harren's massive castle on Vhagar. There are many details that led to this battle that I'd like to include, but I'm going to shorten it. The battle took to the skies, and the dragons clashed above the massive lake of the God's Eye. While plummeting towards the surface of the lake, locked in a free fall, Daemon leapt from Caraxes onto Vhagar, where Aemon was chained to his dragon. Daemon drove Dark Sister into the missing eye socket of Aemon and out the back of his head. Moments later, the dragon struck the lake. Neither dragon rider survived that fatal battle. After the dance, Aemon's body was found still attached to Vhagar's remains, with Dark Sister still in his eye socket. Daemon's remains were never found, and many believe he survived and lived out his days with the bastard girl Dragonseed Nettles. Wow. Thus, the blacks and the greens each lost their warrior princes that day, and the dance continued to rage through the Seven Kingdoms. But man, I cannot wait to see that fight on screen. Yeah, that's a massive one. That's the
oh yeah
yeah.
That'll be that's like the battle of
Yeah, and you go from that beginning, kind of just a warm up battle, and then Sir Matthew's jumping us right there to just that will be it right there. So, well, guys, I could go on forever about the dance. After reading through Fire and Blood and A Song of Ice and Fire wiki, there are so many more topics and events that I could bring up, but this would probably turn into an actual essay. I know many of us are well versed in the histories of Westeros, but I wanted to really dive into some of the most important characters in the dance. And the seeds that would cause the Targaryen civil war. I hope that what I wrote above will lead to much discussion and speculation, especially for the upcoming show. Excited to see where we could go. Cheers, fellow knights. Yeah, your fellow Lord Sir Matthew of House Perry. So
yeah. The battles are going to be insane. I think we can all agree on that one, and maybe we'll get to see a little bit more of what's going on at the God's Eye. So who knows? It'd be cool if they gave us some sort of maybe they answer if Daemon did actually survive it, right? Because we don't know, and it's this big mystery, or maybe they just kind of leave us with some kind of scene that alludes to the fact that maybe he did. Survive it. But I feel like if Daemon were to have survived it, he would have, gone and done something else. But who knows? But it's going to be cool. It is definitely going to be cool to see some of these huge, epic battles with so much on the line between them. And so I think it's possible people like this because of the way, with all of the conflict around the last couple seasons, the way people view it. I think we may come out, if this series is done as well as as the first few seasons of Game of Thrones is, we could come out of this saying this is better. So we totally could. Yeah, we totally could, and we might, just because there's really no, we can't sit here and argue with it. And they're not going to go way off. There's so much room to kind of do various things. While you're waiting over the God's Eye. Yeah, you're waiting over the God's Eye. You could throw in all sorts of kind of dialogue or internal thoughts from a character who's there waiting on this, battle between dragons and talking about the God's Eye. You could actually, that could add to our speculation in A Song of Ice and Fire. You know what I mean? Like, we could talk about the order that lives there and all that kind of stuff. There's so many little tiny things that you could do and connections that you could make to the main series that we haven't even thought of. There's plenty of room for that. And so when Sir Matthew says, speculating and kind of theorizing about where we could go and where we could fill in some of those voids, I totally think we're going to be drawn towards some of these lesser lords and individuals who are being used to kind of maybe run between houses or to chat or whatever. I don't know. I just kind of think there's a lot they can do, and it's going to be, it actually might be, I would be okay if it ended up being as good, if not better. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me, actually. Awesome. Hey, thank you, Sir Matthew Perry, for sending us that, and as we said, that we'll turn that into several other pieces of content. So absolutely, guys, let us know. What are you guys looking forward to in the House of the Dragon? Are you on the greens? Are you on the blacks?
Which side you picking? Who you on?
Yeah. Who do you support in this? Yeah, and leave us a comment and let us know what you guys think. So